What is up, everybody? My name is James DeFiore, and this is Casual Friday. It has been a big week. It has been a tiring week. And a lot has happened behind the scenes that I can't even begin to explain how crazy and funny it was. There is a guy by the name of Brendan Russell who is apparently the president of the Riding Association for the Liberals in Vanier, who tried to get me and David Wallace to give him the Klondike Papers by behind the scenes threatening to like destroy us and all these crazy things. And I talked to this guy on the phone. This is like a die-in-the-wool liberal, and he was like, "Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I wanted the Klondike Papers, and I think that it would be in your best interest to give it to me because I have a lot of clout at the Liberal Party." And I was just like, "Okay, like, I'm probably not going to send it to you, but you might be able to find it online. But why do you want to do this?" And he's like, "Well, you know, James, I think I can be valuable to you in the long run, and I think that you might want to take advantage of my standing in the Liberal Party." And then I got off the phone and I called David Wallace and I'm like, "Fuck, David, who the fuck is this guy?" And he's just like, this guy was apparently pretending to be David Wallace's agent last year, trying to land him a book deal, but doing a very bad job of it. Let me try to set up a certain context for everybody listening at home. There are people in the ecosystem of politics that nibble the edges of the insiders, but never really quite get there, who do things that are like, can only be compared to like mischief and vandalism. They want to feel like they're part of something. They want to feel like they are part of the machine that makes the behind the scenes of politics run, so they can like feel good about themselves and masturbate to their own greatness later on in life or something. But really, they don't have any pull at all. So I call this guy and I'm just like, "Hey, Brendan, it's James DeFiore calling." And he seemed a little shocked, actually, because he, at this point of this phone call, he had only talked to David, and David was like, I don't know what you want, but I'm getting off the phone because you tried to screw me last year, and I don't like you. So then I call him, and I'm like, "Hey, Brendan, it's James DeFiore." And he's like, "Oh, hey, James, how's it going?" And I said, I'm well. Why are you calling David Wallace and asking for the Klondike Papers again?" "Oh, well, I just thought that maybe David would like to give me the Klondike Papers because I know a lot of things, and I just thought he'd be interested in the things that I know." I'm like, "Okay, well, what kind of things do you know?" And he's like, "Well, you know, I'm not sure if I can say it over the phone because a lot of this stuff is like classified things, and this is just, you know, one of those situations where I have a lot of inside knowledge, and I might be able to like help you, but I was hoping I could get the Klondike Papers in return." So then I got off the phone with him. I called David back. I'm going to put David on in a second. And I was like, "David, this guy thinks that I'm supposed to give him the Klondike Papers, and I don't want to give it to him yet. And what do you make of all this?" And he's just like, "I think that guy's an idiot. Let's do a show on him and all this stuff." And I'm like, "I don't know if he's worth a show." So I called this guy back and I'm like, "Hey, Brandon, I'll give you the Klondike Papers if you can give me an interview with Chrystia Freeland, utilizing your big-time connections that I know you have at the Liberal Party, because you told me you had them." And he's like, "James, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Christia's, not Miss Freeland, not Chrystia Freeland, but Christia's. I'm going to call Christia's people, and I'm going to see if I can get this interview for you." And that was 4 days ago, and nothing has happened because Brendan is a lying piece of shit. Here to join me now on Casual Friday is Paul Atkinson from the Eager Beaver podcast. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good, brother. How about yourself?
Not too bad. And Mr. David Wallace himself. How you doing, brother?
Cheers. Pleasantly.
Are you going to say stuff?
Numb.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Okay. David, we were going to do a show on this guy, but
he's stuff to say.
But he's not worth a show, is he? David, I'm going to keep you out. You're going to come back in because there's a massive delay. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, there's a big delay. Yeah.
How you doing, brother? How was your week been? This is Casual Friday. We're going to be very casual today. There's so much happening, and I'm very giddy. So please, how you been?
It was well. Anybody who tuned into the morning show would know it was quite a busy week for me. I had I had to go into the office a few days early this week because now that it's mid-September, everybody's back in the office, and it's really busy for me. Not complaining, it's just really, really busy. So my workload has gone way up as a result. I'm okay with that, but
Yeah.
the week before it was a lot quieter. So this week I was running at 100-meter pace, and I'm tired.
I like the red in the background. I feel like
that?
there's going to be a woman dancing back there any moment.
No, I'm solo tonight. I'm solo tonight.
Let's see if David doesn't have a delay anymore. Hello, David.
Hey, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. How is the delay? Are you good? Is the delay big?
No, I just got a little glitch on your end. That's it.
Nope. There's nothing going on with my end. I got Elon Musk internet, my friend. Everything is ship shape over here. I didn't.
As I was saying before, I'd never heard of this guy until last year, and he contacted the gentleman who does the really amusing TikToks. Callum, is it
Callum,
Just hold
yeah.
on. Hold on a second. For those just joining us, we're talking about Brendan Russell, this plucky 20-something that decided that they were going to try to be part of the behind-the-scenes political dark arts movement that he thinks exists in Canada. Go ahead, David.
So I guess he contacted Callum, who had done some TikToks on the Klondike Papers, and told him he was my agent, and I was shopping a book deal or something of that. So Callum and I cooked up a little something and caught him out in his lie. I'd never spoken to the guy,
Yeah.
and we clowned him. And then this time he sent me through those messages. I didn't know who he was that you were referring to, and I mean. First of all, I mean, the kids got to realize these papers were probably within the hands of the office of the PMO and the opposition about 15 minutes after they hit the journalists' hands.
Well, we actually know they were, don't we? And we won't. I won't
Yeah.
say how we know on air, but they were sent to a staffer of the PMO about a day after they came out. Correct?
Yep, they were indeed.
So this guy is and listen, that's what I find so funny about the story is that, and politics is weird. You know who else was like this? Debbie Jodouin. She's another one of these people who's like, she's like nibbling the edges of politics. She was a volunteer on a bunch of campaigns, and she wanted to be part of something so bad that she fucked over everyone she's ever worked for in order to feel like she was in the mix.
But she was actually useful to me.
Please go on.
Well, she was a great snitch. I mean, during the whole Patrick Brown debacle, I couldn't get her to shut up. It was like a $2 tie hooker. Not saying that she was a prostitute, not at all. I'd never met her face to face, just over the phone. But man, I knew about everybody's dirty laundry the first hour I spoke to her.
Yeah, no, she was like that. I've talked to her several times back in the Patrick Brown days, anyways, and then she became the person who tanked Patrick Brown, his leadership bid for the federal Liberals, paid for by Pierre Poilievre.
Mm-hmm.
And then my favorite part of that story is
allegedly.
My favorite part of that entire story about Deb Jodouin with the whole Patrick Brown leadership campaign that was tanked isn't the fact that Pierre Poilievre ended up paying her legal fees. It's the fact that they wanted to keep her name anonymous for enough time for her to sink Jean Charest's campaign, who she then went to after she fucked over Patrick Brown, because Pierre Poilievre wanted to see if he can get a twofer. And then when Jean Charest found out her name, immediately fired her and distanced himself from her so he didn't get blamed for being the one that put her on the Patrick Brown campaign. Listen, I don't like Pierre Poilievre. You don't like Pierre Poilievre. But as far as the political black op goes, he got away with it. Right, David?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why not? I mean, if it's worked 2 or 3 times before, especially Patrick Brown is the Charlie Brown of the political world. I mean, they keep putting that football there and he keeps landing on his ass every time.
Yeah, it's
actually quite humorous.
Yeah, we're all trying to kick the football, and Pierre Poilievre is Lucy, and it's a very crazy thing. I want to shift gears for a second here because I don't know if anyone remembers me having Caryma Sa'd on the show last year. I don't remember what month it was. It could have been even this year at the beginning of the year. Maybe it was January. I had Caryma and this guy named Danny Taro. And Danny Taro, I guess, is this like small time podcaster, even smaller than me. You know, like no one knows who he is. But like one of these self-righteous guardians of left-wing orthodoxy, who was one of these people who was like, I don't think Caryma should go to the drag queen story time because she's not championing the position that we're championing. Like this is one of those people where there's only one of two positions, right? And I had Danny and Caryma sort of square off on my show. And in hindsight, it was one of my worst shows for me personally because I didn't stay. This is one of the things that I hate about these self-righteous left-wingers. I'm not talking about all left-wingers. I'm talking about the self-righteous left-wingers. So this guy trashes Caryma, and then I guess he lost his job and tried to blame Caryma, and now he's raising money on the fact that he claims falsely that Caryma cost him his job. I'm going to play you a clip from this self-righteous left-winger, and you, the audience, can tell me in the comments, and David, we'll get your comments as well, if you think that this guy was fired because Caryma trashed him or because of what he says here. Remember, this is a self-proclaimed left-wing good guy who's saying the following, and here he goes.
You never know who will get served next, says Caryma. And I mean, honestly, this, how do you say it? This is loose pussy energy. This is like really big loose pussy energy. Why do you always gotta be serving people with this, with the like legal documents? And then I always hear about the documents getting served, and then I never hear about like, oh, the case got resolved. I never hear about like Caryma dropped the case or anything like served, and then people finding out like, oh, these papers I got served with are like not even like legitimate and they don't mean anything. I'm pretty sure that is the case. So loose pussy energy, which is a new phrase I just invented, and I coined it here. Why serve papers when you could be serving cunt? Truly, like
Okay, listen, I am not a
Good God.
Right? I am not a politically correct person, as everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
But that was some of the most misogynistic shit I have ever heard. Loose pussy energy talking about Caryma, coming from a guy who's never looked better than when he had terminal cancer, when he didn't have any facial hair or head hair. Now he just looks like a bus shelter inhabitant. And the fact that he would use such misogynistic, sexist terms to describe Caryma, who's literally one of the best people that I know inside and out, is a crystallized, perfect example of the shittiness of the far left. And I am just completely floored that this guy has the gumption to call himself a progressive when he when he proudly proclaims that he coined the term when talking about Caryma, loose pussy energy, when you are, quote, serving up cunt. Paul, please tell me, what am I missing here?
That's extreme, man. Like, look,
Distasteful.
I don't even know what to say to that. That's about as sexist as it could possibly be.
Greg Van Leuven asks, who says he's a lefty? He's a self-proclaimed socialist. And he's, listen, there's bad people on the left, Greg. I think we have to start getting into the mindset that there are shitty people, and they hail from all parts of the political spectrum. I'm sure, although I haven't ran into too many, but I'm sure there are a shit ton of shitty centrists that I'm going to have to take to task because I am also a centrist. David, as a person, I'm pretty sure you're politically ambidextrous. You know, you lean one way on some ways, on some issues, and one way on other issues. When you hear shit like that, is that not one of the main issues that you have with politics nowadays? Is that sometimes the people that say that they have history on their side feel then entitled to be complete fucking assholes like that guy?
Well, it's certainly depressing now that I'm not really in the game anymore. But when I was, it was like a gift falling down from the sky. You have to understand the radical left and the radical right are the most militant, the most likely to vote, the most to lead causes that would cause people who would otherwise not vote to vote. So marketing to extremists on either side of the equation is dead simple because you're not expending a lot of effort. The message is the message. They've already bought it hook, line, and sinker. They equate a political stance with their own personal beliefs. And beliefs are not political by nature.
Jen Waddell, a girl after my masturbating alter ego, says men with tiny dicks love to use loose pussy energy because they hate it when people use big dick energy. You owe me some lotion and tissues, Jen Waddell, but thank you for that. But it's true. David, what you said nails it. Like when people think that they're on the right side of an issue, they give themselves license to be heinous people, just like that. We see it from the right all the time. It's much easier to spot on the right because they do less. They exert less effort trying to hide their heinousness, I think. Whereas the left,
Yeah, they're not trying to stand up for anybody but their rich friends. They don't give a fuck.
That's
right?
Yeah. Whereas the left try to maintain this idea that they are the good guys, and then say shit like that, using the fact that they're on the right side of history as their shield, as they say things that a Nazi would say or whatever the fuck, like not a Nazi, but a complete like a pig, like. I'm just, and that guy is like he's just this little twerp, like he's not even a thing, but people love it, and that's what I don't like about the ideological left and right is that they excuse themselves from the worst types of behavior because they think they're on the right side of an issue. Paul, like you've ran into that before, yeah?
Oh God, yeah. Well, and the thing about it is that troubles me so is the state the world's in when it comes to. I have a TikTok, and my TikTok is all about positive mental health, trying to be good. It doesn't sell. It just doesn't sell. But if you start spewing hatred and putting out terrible messages and saying bad things, people hop all over that. I'm like, this is an upside down world. When good does bad at the box office and bad breaks the blockbuster. It's a blockbuster. It's like this just what the fuck is going on?
When people when people on the far left talk about how, like in Charlottesville, for example, when it was so out in the open, all of these self-proclaimed Nazis and racists were walking around saying you will not replace us and all that kind of stuff. That is like really in your face racism. You don't have to fucking use your imagination or whatever.
No.
And you saw on their faces as they marched with their fucking Home Depot tiki torches that they were like giddy that they could be in public saying this shit. What you just saw from Danny Taro is that version on the left.
Yes.
Where they feel so strongly that they are right about something that they get giddy that they can be evil towards somebody in public and not have to pay a price for it. And it's crazy. Caryma's going to join us soon, by the way, and she's going to talk about it. She wanted me to play that clip before she came on because she didn't want it to seem like, well, whatever. Who would want to play that clip while you're sitting there?
No,
it is crazy. David, can you do you want to talk about the appointment that you didn't have this week?
No, because I've rescheduled that. So
okay.
Rest assured that I think that things are going to move forward. Which way, I don't know, but we're moving forward with that, which is good in ways because it'll give me a little autonomy, so to speak.
No one
And,
knows what you're talking about, so it fucking doesn't even matter now. Like people are like,
no, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Well, it'll open up a world of possibilities. Maybe I'll go out west and pay a visit to
Couple
some
people.
old haunts.
That would be fun. Can you please film
Would
that if
be.
you do?
Yeah, please.
There's a video that came out recently of the former Justice Minister of Alberta, Jonathan Dennis, and
Who?
Jonathan Dennis and
Never
Maurizio
heard of him.
Torigno, who's I guess a landlord, like evicting or whatever you want to call it a tenant that has been all paid up by throwing their belongings onto the street. And Jonathan Dennis
Imagine
is
that.
wandering in the background with like a mint green shirt on, going, I don't even know what's happening here. Like Alberta is so fucked and funny because there's an ecosystem of corruption there that includes judges and lawyers and former justice ministers and cops.
Cops.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they all feed each other. And look, let's see if I can explain something without getting sued. There are, I'm not going to name who they are. There are two or
Fuck
three.
'em.
There are like three. Well, I'm not going to name them, and please don't name them.
Pardon my language.
Yeah, but there,
I'm not going to.
there's like three people
Grow some balls.
in Alberta who have a system, a very shady, underhanded system to entrap people into lawsuits. And how they do this is they spoof their emails and they make it seem like somebody is sending an email that is like equal to threatening or extortion, and then they'll sue the person for extortion. Another method that they have is to send emails to other people purported to be from one of them, but then pretending it isn't, baiting the person that they're sending the email to say something about them and then sue that person for defamation. And they have successfully done this like several times to the point where I'm told that there is a class action lawsuit. I just found this out tonight. A class action lawsuit made up of all of these victims of this like gang of corrupt fuck faces who have been doing this for years. And I might be a part of that class action lawsuit because it happened to me. And again, please don't say their name because I don't want to fucking deal with another thing.
No, I don't know if I've been sued by them yet. I don't know.
And
Then again, I wouldn't try to extort anything. I don't want one penny from those pigs.
no, not.
I want something else, and I'm going to take it.
I don't want to. Let's not
Justice.
ask a follow-up question.
Justice.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Just ice.
Hey, let them have Alberta. No offense, but Jesus Christ, man. I mean, there's not even a puddle there. You die of thirst. Fuck it.
There's
Let
no.
it fall.
There's no.
Die.
There's no
No
anti-slap.
offense to the good people there.
There's no anti-slap legislation in Alberta, which is how these guys are able to get away with all this shit. Like these are rich people that fuck over people that don't have money and use the legal system against them the way that you used to be able to do in Ontario. And what they did to me was they sent me emails that obviously appeared that they were from these people and admitted to things. And then when I reported that they admitted to these things, they went around and then sued me for defamation, claiming that they never sent me these emails. And that's what they did, right? And here's the weird thing. I was never served papers, right? And I would get these things in the mail that said that I had to pick up something at the post office. And I just never went to pick it up. And then all of a sudden, like literally like less than a month later, I got a default judgment from a court in Alberta saying that I owed this person 50 grand. Because they have judges that are part of their ecosystem that would sign off on something like that. Despite the fact that I didn't even get the papers to begin with, all of a sudden I had a default judgment against me for 50 G's. And I'm just like,
I'm the same way. I got a dummy email address, so I guess the person, whoever opens it up, informed me. They said, hey, something's addressed to somebody here saying a default judgment by the Wenzels against you. I didn't even know the case had gone to trial because I couldn't afford a lawyer. I don't give a shit. I'm still playing your tapes there, old lady and Sonny Boy. I'll be playing your tapes when the next special that James and I are doing, the Klondike Papers or whatever we're going to name it, the in-depth podcast series that we're going to do, that we're going to record starting on Sunday. And all the tapes coming out, all the stuff that I gave to people to stash before I went down and Dumb Allen and Gerald thinks they wipe things clean.
We all,
And Brad Mitchell,
yeah.
stand by because we got a big surprise for you.
Oh my God,
fat
Brad
boy.
Mitchell! I forgot about that story. That's crazy. And by the way, I have a new tagline for myself that we are also going to include as the tagline for this podcast series. And because I deal with cults, and because I do a lot of work behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about, and because I'm doing this with David, my new tagline is, "If you're not going to kill me, get the fuck out of my way," because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are like dangerous, and they like to threaten. They like to send private investigators to my house. And literally now, whenever I see a weird car driving by slow, I stand outside like this now with my arms out, and I'm like, if you're not going to kill me, get the fuck out of my way, please. And thank you. And on that note, Caryma Sa'd joins us. Caryma, how are you?
Nice. That's a good tagline. I might adopt that as well.
Yes, you may. That
I
is
think
literally.
a lot of people will take me up on the offer, though.
I think every human being could use a
me too.
tagline like, if you're not going to kill me, get the fuck out of my way. Like it's really for humanity itself. It's not just for me and you. Caryma, I played the clip of Danny Taro saying all that stuff or whatever. I would like to get your take on the collapsing narrative of the far left when they proclaim themselves to be the good guys, and I'm including people like the Anti-Hate Network and all this kind of people like that into this pile of people, where they claim to be the good guys and then use such misogynistic language to get a point across.
What point?
I don't
Yeah,
even know
what point? There was no point there. He was just being a pig.
Touche. I stand corrected.
So whatever. They're hypocrites. What do you want me to say? They're hypocrites.
But people don't see
it comes
it.
through very clearly. People don't want to see it because they themselves are hypocrites, right? And they buy into whatever. Oh, I like this about them, so I'm going to turn the other way for this. But there's no consistency. There's no rigor. There's no ethics or values. So it really boils down to that. I have no expectations of any of these people.
Just as
That's politics in a nutshell, boiled down to its very essence.
You know, with the four of us here, Paul, I don't know if you're like this, but I know that David and Caryma and I are like this. Like, we are, and I think, Paul, you're like this too. Like, there's no ideology on this panel right now, and yet I feel like all of us kind of like have really strong progressive ideals. Yet, people that like really want to shout from the hilltops that they're progressives would probably describe all of us as Nazis, especially me and you, Paul, because of our haircuts.
Yes, yeah, my follically challenged pate.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the thing is, I've been called all kinds of names in the last couple of years, and I don't give a shit about what people think. People are going to think whatever they want to think, and many of them will draw their own conclusions based on a 30-second soundbite. I'm 55 years old. There's a little bit more to me than a 30-second soundbite, number one. Number two, I've always been a left-leaning progressive, always. And I've voted for Green, NDP, Progressive Conservative, and Liberals in the past, all dependent upon the riding I was in and the best candidate in that situation. I'm definitely left of center, but I'm not far left. And a lot of my progressive conservative friends who are right of center, we're like literally this far apart on our furthest distance on any issue, like literally, you know. And some people will say I'm because I'm centrist. They're like, well, you just don't want to take a stand on anything. And no, that's not true. I take a stand on a lot of things, and I will do so until I no longer draw breath. Come on, I was just in Pride Parade. I was the MC and the DJ for The Office. I was right at the front. It's like, come on, and I'm proud to do that, to take part and support my friends and my colleagues and my neighbors. I was out in the streets yelling at idiots who were torturing us because that was wrong. But unless I'm extremely left or extremely right to certain groups of people, they'll call me, Nazi or whatever they want. And I don't even care. I don't give a damn what they say. They can say whatever they want. They can continue to do it, and they will. Doesn't hurt me.
I got called a Nazi this week because I said that it wasn't really that big of a deal that Pierre Poilievre said some shit over the PA on a West.
Oh, I didn't give a shit either. I said so on the show the other day. I don't care.
Yeah, I was just like, did I agree with what he said? No.
No.
Did he sound smarmy and cheesy? Yeah.
Yep.
Do I think he's a fucking evil, horrible person for doing it? No. And people
No.
were like, Nazi. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I can't figure it out
I
anymore.
thought it was a dick move, and everything he said was typical smarmy Pierre Poilievre bullshit.
You know what I was most offended by with that speech on the plane? The fact that he so telegraphed in a painful way an opportunity to use his tagline. Bring it
I
home.
didn't even
the
watch
big
the
problem
clip.
is
That's how much I care.
we're talking about it,
What's that, David?
right? That's the big problem that we're talking about. This is a reason to hate this guy. We conveniently ignore
There's a
the
million
fact
other reasons.
that we could point to that say, hey, this guy is enough, right? Like he's voting, like voting against gay marriage. Look at the actions that he's actually taken that are not opinion. Nobody can argue them. It's his voting record. How come nobody ever questions these politicians on their voting records? Simple.
They don't know their voting records.
That's what
the easy answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
more mad at
literally the
public.
easiest thing to find.
Yeah, it is.
I hate the 65% of people that didn't vote in the last Ontario provincial election more than I hate Doug Ford. I'm that guy. I just like, because you know that 65% that didn't vote, the vast majority of them don't like Doug Ford. Bitch about him constantly, yet didn't actually show up on voting on the election day to vote. That's who most of my animosity is.
I call into question if that was heavily influenced by polls that were released right up until the moment of the election. Because they were saying, oh, he's going to win a landslide victory. He's going to win. And I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people just said, well, fuck it. My vote doesn't count, and stayed home. I said this morning on the show, I do not think that, we're supposed to have a tight election scheduled. It's not really the case, but we're supposed to. Every 4 years we have 6 months before the election, polling should not be released to the public at all, because it can heavily influence. And I'm sure that's why Doug Ford won his landslide victory with 17%.
I think you're right. Caryma, I'm going to throw it to you in a second, because I think that but the idea that even though I agree with everything you said, Paul, I think that polls should just not exist in the month leading up to an election. I would really much prefer that because of what you just said. But I still have enough animosity towards the voter at large for being so susceptible to that they would just be apathetic when it comes to election day. I'm one of those guys. I don't know, Caryma, how do you feel about that?
I think generally polls, like, people aren't always math oriented. I think very few people are math oriented. And so the utility of polls for anyone outside of the campaign team, I would say, is a net negative, because they don't understand them and then just sort of rely on an interpretation that's not accurate. And as you pointed out, get discouraged, before it even starts. So.
Yeah. One of the one of the main facets of an election campaign is advertising, and so I think it's apropos that we have one of the best creative advertising people in the game today. His name is Paul Riss. Paul, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. You've done a lot of work for like car companies and for all these big corporations stuff. Have you ever actually been tasked to do any advertising for an NGO or a political campaign? Ever?
No, I've actually never worked on political stuff.
Oh, that's good. Good for you.
Yeah, no, I just don't. I don't think. I don't know. I don't think like when you look at all the advertising, it's always like, oh, this person's terrible and this person's terrible. Like, actually, quite like following Singh, but he's like constantly posting about how Pierre and Trudeau are not going to do anything about this grocery thing, and I don't know. Just
he doesn't speak enough about himself. He focuses so much on what's bad about the others. Is that sort of the idea?
Yeah, and I find that's like it's super obvious in American politics, but like it's here too. Like they just would rather like, I'd rather you tell me about yourself than hack down the other person, because like I can just find out what that person's what their policies are. I can just go to their website and find out everything that I need to know about what they think, and I can make those other judgments. But why wouldn't you? Like, it doesn't always work out well for brands when they say McDonald's, like Burger King doesn't say McDonald's is shit usually. Like, every once in a while they jab at each other, but they say our burger's flame broiled because it's fucking better because of that. And that's like what, like, really good advertising doesn't usually hack some other thing entity down. It talks itself up. And that's what I feel like they should do. Drives me nuts. Like, I can't even hardly watch them anymore because they're all at each other.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you nailed it. I also think I can hardly watch Singh, not because I find him to be unwatchable, but because he's invisible. I don't know where he is. I don't know if it's the media's fault for not following him enough, or if he's just not being compelling enough. Paul, I don't know if you feel the same way about Jagmeet Singh, but listen, I ran into him in the airport a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Hey, Jagmeet," and he recognized me from the last time that I met him when we talked about this article that I wrote where he didn't really distance himself from these from the extremist group in India, the separatist group whose name
Tamil Tigers
right now, Khalistani or something like that.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
yeah. And I was like, listen, buddy, like, do yourself a favor and say shit that's gonna get traction. And he started laughing. By the way, he's pretty short. He's a lot shorter than you think in person. But
Really? I thought he'd be tall.
I
No,
know
he's not that tall.
You think so, but he's not. I'm 5'6", and we were pretty much at eye level. Maybe a little bit taller than me. That's it. But I was trying to explain to him my opinion, which he obviously doesn't have to take at all. Like, who am I? But I never hear from him until it's like weeks later about an issue that was talked about weeks ago. Paul, what do you think Jagmeet's problem is? Do you think the media just doesn't pay attention to him, or do you think he's just not good enough at getting the media's attention?
I think one of the issues is that he just continues to play the same insult game that Polyev does. He blames Trudeau for everything and then turns around the next day and says, "We just signed a deal." Like, dude, you're flip-flopping more than Skippy is, which is not good for politics, not good for a leader, and not going to convince me to ever vote NDP. When he first got in, I had such great feelings for him because I liked what he had to say, but now he just plays the same blame game time and time again, and it just doesn't work for me. And I've met him. He's a charming guy, good-looking fella, solid as a rock. I'm like, I don't know, this much taller than him or something. He's, you know.
We have breaking news. In the chat right now, we have a troll. His or her name is No. He's saying, "You're saying Jagmeet's name wrong, you fucking idiot. It's not pronounced the way it's spelled. I just pronounced it the correct way. And I admit that I'm guilty of accidentally pronouncing it Jagmeet instead of Jagmeet. And I would just like to say to No, thank you for the correction. Cheers. Anyways, Caryma, can you give me your take, and then we'll go to David, about what you think Jagmeet Singh's problem is as far as this ecosystem that we're dealing with right now in politics, where he literally seems like the afterthought that you're like, oh yeah, that guy exists. What's going on there?
Well, I think part of it is this the alliance that they established with the Liberals means that, you know, his opinion really is an afterthought, right? It took, I think, some of the steam out from what he could otherwise be doing, and that collaborative approach, which, you know, is not inherently a bad thing, but in the game that we have, makes it so he's a bit more irrelevant. And then the actual messaging is not really in line with, I guess, what the NDP used to, ought to, at one time maybe did stand for. Pierre Poilievre, if you ignore the fact that it's him saying it and you just take the messaging, some of that is a lot more in line with what we could be hearing from the NDP leader and just aren't. I think that he also falls into this trap of being a bit reactionary and into the culture wars in a way that's not meaningful or substantial. So he's a lot easier to disregard.
If we think of politics in terms of the way that it's sort of been, like the status quo over the last, like, say, 30 years, Caryma, I'm asking you this question because I know that David will just say burn the whole fucking thing down. So we'll get to you, David, in a second. But and Paul too. But is there a stroke? Was there an opportunity for Justin Trudeau, given the sharp turn to the right that Pierre Poilievre has taken, to reestablish the Liberals as a centrist party after they had clearly over the last 8 years had at least in words had drifted more to the left?
Maybe, but I don't think he has the backbone to do that. And I think that resiling from, where they're at right now will be perceived and interpreted as itself a swing to the far right, because everyone has lost all sense of nuance and common sense. So I think that he is sort of stuck in that quagmire as a result.
David, give me the burn it to the ground speech, because I know actually you and I have talked about the NDP before about how it's like they don't even have a fixer. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't have any behind the scenes operatives.
The problem
that seem
is
to be doing anything.
They don't have any will. The alliance that was spoken of that they've struck. I don't care what the agreement are. When you hold the hammer, you use it. And if you don't use it, it's because you lack the political or the balls to use it. And then, so what function is this alliance? What function is it providing NDP constituents, NDP supporters? He's made his party into, it's not a serious contender. And that is a complete failure at messaging. It's a complete failure at policy. You mentioned that these all they do is attack their opponents because they have nothing to say.
Yeah. And right now we're dealing. Right now
nothing
we're dealing
to say.
with.
It's all about
dealing with.
We could do. And again, you mentioned the messaging with Poilievre. You take all emotion out of it. Little weasel is saying a message that can at least convince those. And I'm not saying that derisively. I'm talking about real conservatives to hold their nose just long enough to vote for him because the messaging is on point. They know this guy's full of shit. They know he's a clown. He's our clown, and it's manageable because this other guy over in Ottawa is burning this place to the ground. And I also, if he does, and he's damned if he doesn't, they have drifted so far left of center that they literally can't go back, and any change at all in their message will just sink them further into the hole. The problem is we don't have any politicians today who actually say what they believe, reading a script, and without conning the public. Some things they're not. Builds a consensus among the voting public by bringing enough forward to the table that everybody, because nobody's perfect, and these people are far less. That's it. Rant over.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. David, if you could go out and then come back in because you're a little choppy right now. But Paul, I know you've never done an ad campaign for a politician, but since you are our resident expert advertising guru, what would you advise someone like a Jagmeet Singh who seems to be invisible in order to like get people to start looking at him again? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like I'm just curious what your mind would be like. How would you handle that situation?
Well, I mean, when I do this with brands, I like try and find their like, is there I call it a category of one. Is there a category of one? Is there a thing that in a politician's case, I guess, is there something that you want to do for people or that you want to accomplish that the other people are not going to talk about, it'll then be more memorable in that way. So there's that, but then there's the other thing I already touched on, which was like, tell me about you, don't tell me what I already know about that other person. Like,
Exactly.
like it feels like they're always preaching to the choir when they do that too. It's like, try it. You know what? If I'm on that line, you got my vote. Like, try and convince somebody you don't have, and then the other thing is like, be consistent, I think, is another thing that I would say is really important. And what Mike, who's like out right now, was talking about, like, actually believe in something and say that thing, and don't just say what you think is going to get you the votes. Say what you really believe and what you really want to do, and if your country feels that way, or by and large, then you'll win.
Paul,
Like,
what about taking risks? Like I remember talking to you like 25 years ago or whatever, and we were talking about ad campaigns. I just remember just a single conversation. You probably don't remember this, but it was whatever. We've had thousands of conversations, but this particular one was about how brands and there is sort of like a not a status quo, but a unwritten rule that when you're talking about marketing your brand, you don't want to use negative words. You don't want to use certain phrases because you don't want your brand associated with something negative. And then Buckley's came out with, it tastes awful, but it works, right? Is there a risk that, do you think that politicians do you think that politicians can take bigger risks with how they deliver their message, where it might not be what you'd expect from a political campaign, especially if you follow the sort of orthodoxy of good messaging that they're not utilizing right now? Like, can you think, doesn't the bigger the risk, isn't that the bigger the payoff when it comes to certain things? And don't you think that we don't see enough of politicians or parties or whatever taking bigger risks with how they campaign and how they message to the people?
yeah, because I think that you're correct in that. Like, you do want to. Buckley's was, they were just like telling the truth. They told you the truth.
It
You
really
ever
does taste
tasted
like
that
shit.
stuff?
Yeah. And
Awesome.
it looks like cum. I'm sorry,
It
but it
does.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I assume that's what cum tastes like too.
Do you think that was the cutting room floor tagline? It tastes
Yeah.
like, it looks like cum, but it's delicious or works
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Like, but they did a thing
Sorry,
there,
Caryma.
right?
I've never tried Buckley's, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's horrible. Just
Yeah.
be sick. It's better being sick. But they did a thing, right? And they really stuck to it. And they've been saying that for how long now? Well, probably longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
For
But,
30
I mean,
years, if not more.
yeah, right. Okay, so I'm a little longer than that, but they stick to that thing, right? And brands that are really smart do that, right? So way back when there was a bunch of car rental places,
Mhm.
and one of them was number one, right? They were the biggest one. I can't remember whether it was Budget or, I don't even remember the name of the company.
Hertz? Was it Hertz?
Yeah, it could have been Hertz. Could
Oh,
have
the
been
OJ one?
yeah, I don't know.
That was Hertz. I think,
Thrifty.
wasn't it?
That was Hertz. Yeah, that was Hertz.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, they came out with, they did the research, and they're like, fuck, we're not number one. We're not number one. And a really smart ad writer said, well, if you're number two, don't you try harder to get to number one than the other guy? Like, they're resting on
Avis.
the world. Yeah, Avis. Yeah,
We try
see,
harder.
look at how well you remembered that, right? We try harder. Like, that's just really, really smart writing.
Mhm.
And I feel like,
Yeah.
but it's a little different with politics, right? Because advertising is just a bunch of money and fake reality of, I like this brand versus that brand. And like, my favorite conversation with another ad guy was, you can have Coke and Pepsi if you want. Like, you don't have to be a Coke person or a Pepsi person. If you want, they're both there for you at all times. Like,
Talk about the original polarization.
yeah,
Coke
right?
versus Pepsi. You know what I mean? Like
Crazy,
liberal
man.
versus conservative. Yeah.
Well,
It's all
remember the Pepsi
downhill from
challenge?
there, yeah.
The problem with politics, and I don't know, I just sound probably super cliche, but they're not in it for what they used to be in it for. Like,
Yeah.
do you really feel like any of the politicians that you have voted for in the last, I don't know, decade or more, are they saying what you want to hear, or are they saying what they believe? Like, are they really civil servants anymore?
Well, in my case, where I live in Centertown, Ottawa,
Yeah.
right downtown, my MP was Ed Broadbent, then it was Paul Dewar, and now it's Yasser Naqvi. And Yasser's a decent enough MP, but, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. He was a pretty good MPP as well. But between Ed Broadbent and Paul Dewar, these were men, and Paul Dewar still, not, sorry, he passed away. Ed Broadbent lives in the neighborhood. He lives a couple of blocks from me. These were men who, when I went to cast my ballot, there was no doubt in my mind whatsoever that when I saw them in local debates, right here in town, that they meant what they said what they meant, and stood by their word. And what sold me on Paul Dewar the first time was a group of us went to see the local candidates debate, and they had a Q&A session afterwards with the, like a town hall, if you will, and there were some questions that were put forth, and most of the candidates gave the typical response of, "That's a very good question. I like that question very much, and I will try and find an answer for that question." But like what we should be doing, whereas when you asked Paul Dewar a question, he would answer it directly, and if he didn't have an answer, he would say, "I don't have the information to answer that correctly. Please give your name and number to this person, and I will call you back. I will email you or call you. How you choose how you want me to contact you. I will." And he did that.
Yeah.
So these were, in the last 12 years of my life, 12, 14 years, when I went to cast my ballot in a federal election, I knew exactly who I was voting for.
Yeah, that's
But
very
those guys are
fortunate.
very rare.
That's very
Yeah.
fortunate that you lived in a riding like that, because,
Yeah.
Paul, just to get back to your point, I think you're talking about leaders more than individual MPs, and I don't remember.
But we don't vote for
feeling-
the leaders, though,
Right, no, I
unless you
know.
live in their
But
riding.
a lot of people do vote for the leaders in a sense, because if they love Justin Trudeau, they'll vote for the Liberal in their riding. But
Yeah,
Paul, to your point, I haven't felt that a leader has represented something authentic and decent since Jack Layton was here.
Mhm.
I was wondering when his name was coming up.
Yeah, but I have felt that way about Paul. To your point, when I voted in the 2015 election, when I voted for Nathaniel Erskine Smith, who was my MP in the Beaches, and watched him vote against his own government 36 times because
yeah.
he's principled.
Yep.
And so I felt like that. I want to shift gears here for a second. And Caryma, when we come back from this clip, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because I watched. Do you guys remember when Obama, after the Sandy Hook tragedy, he did a press conference in which he wiped his eyes, and MAGA went ballistic before there was a MAGA, but like the far right went ballistic because they're like, there were no tears, and they literally like took the Sandy Hook thing and made it seem, and they made it seem like it was something that that he was staging in order to seem like he was sad about something. I saw Danielle Smith do a press conference where she also seemed to be choked up. And I want to play the clip, and then I want to get whoever wants to give their opinion on what we're about to see regarding Danielle Smith. So here's the clip on Danielle Smith.
It's unimaginable pain, and I'm heartbroken by what these families are going through.
The teleprompter.
Right now, the most important comfort I can offer is the promise that each sick child is getting the best possible care. And I would just like to thank all of the medical professionals who have been doing everything they can to treat and to heal. And to comfort these children and their families. I know that each affected family and all Albertans want to know what the root cause of the outbreak is.
See, okay. I love Jen Waddell. I know her. She's a friend and she's a regular viewer. She says she's talking about my comparison to the Obama thing. I'm not comparing the incident. I'm comparing the authenticity of the person giving the press conference and whether or not they're authentic in their tears. She says false equivalency, 26 dead children and 6 dead adults is not the same as an E. coli outbreak. But it's not my position that who am I to say that Danielle Smith is faking crying during that press conference? I don't like her. I don't like her policies. I don't think she's a good premier. But why would that impact my ability to be like, you know what? I'm not inside her head. I don't know if she's being authentic with her tears or not. Why do I have to be cynical about watching a leader break down into tears? Paul, what do you think about this?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, there's two Pauls.
well,
My bad. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just call me Punk, and then we'll know.
Paul first, and then over to you, Punk, after Paul.
So here's my personal thoughts on this. I think it was an act, and if she was upset at all, it was about the millions of dollars that could be lost by these companies if they get sued into oblivion by the parents. And there goes donors, because some of the stuff I was reading about this organization today was they had multiple violations in the past for something similar. Luckily, nobody died or got horribly sick, but nobody was policing them. Kind of like long-term care homes here in Ontario. They shut down the inspections. I think it was an act on her part. And if she was genuinely upset, it was about the loss of money. That's my personal opinion.
I find that cynical, but go ahead, Paul Riss.
I honestly don't really know. Like, I don't know. I'm so not following her. But I will say this. I'm like kind of an emotional human being. James knows me and like that. He knows that my wife calls me a sociopath light, but it's just a joke. I mean, I'm like not really like that. I'm quite an emotional person. But like, I don't know, unless it was like my family member, I don't think I would be as broken up as she is. Like, I just think that, I don't know if that sounds crass. I hope not.
No.
But, like, obviously the people that they're like the center of the onion, then the layers closer to you are going to affect you more than the ones that are way out.
Mm.
I mean, I feel this is it's a crazy tragedy. It is awful. I would never wish this to happen to anybody. My worst enemy, I wouldn't wish this to happen to. However, I didn't cry because I don't have the emotional connection to all of those people.
Mm.
I can still feel empathy for them and really feel it that way, but like it's not gonna tear me apart like what seemed to be happening there. It was just a little weird, I thought.
Well, if you read Nate Pike from The Breakdown, what he wrote about this, it might stir a few emotions because he got into the details of what actually happened to some of these kids.
Yeah.
And it's really harsh, like really harsh. I read it today and it was like I had to stop halfway through because it was like a punch to the gut. But again, I wasn't weeping over it. It was like, Jesus, this is horrible. This needs to be dealt with. Somebody needs to get sued. But I wasn't breaking down and crying. And I cry all the time at the littlest things.
Yep.
This was like somebody, I was angry. Yeah,
that's the thing, right? Like that, when I heard about that, my first thought was how the fuck could somebody let this happen to the kids? How could somebody let that happen to kids?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't cry. I wasn't particularly sad, but I was really, really upset with however it happened. Like, I feel absolute empathy for those families. But had my cousin lived there and they lost their child, or if it was like, it was my niece, I would be absolutely destroyed because the personal connection. And when you're talking about, you were reading the stuff and you're going, I think you're building a bit of a personal connection there because like you're making, it's happening inside your head. When you're reading it, if your brain works anything like mine, you're seeing pictures of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're actually closer to experiencing it, I think, than hearing it some person on the news tell you about it. I mean,
Yeah, I understand both of your points. The part that I struggle with is that I can't say if Danielle Smith was being authentic or not. And I feel like it is better for me as an individual to give her the benefit of the doubt than to be cynical and say she was acting. I just
Well,
feel like I
here's why
have
I'm
to
so
give her
cynical,
the
though.
benefit of the doubt. Go ahead.
She said today, I'm not going to go against medical professionals and ruling and saying, I'm like, you told us to eat horse paste.
Okay, but I don't think that's relevant to her crying while trying
But
to
she
talk
went
about this
she
issue.
went against COVID vaccine restrictions. She went against all the COVID restrictions and health restrictions that were put in place. And in this instance today, she says, well, I'm not going to go against what the health professionals tell me to do. So what is it?
I don't, but I think that's a distraction from the fact that did she have a moment where she felt emotional about what happened?
I don't believe she did.
Then that is crazy. Then she's the most. If she didn't, if that was an act, then she is not even human. And I have a hard time getting to that point. I just feel like since I can't climb inside her head, I can't accuse her of being fake about that. I have to give her the benefit of the doubt. And if she's lying and she took me for a ride and whoever else believes her, I'd rather be taken for a ride than be wrong about calling her an actress in that moment. You know what I mean?
And I hear you. I hear you.
And that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Like she's, but by the way, she's an awful premier. she's terrible. And it makes me wonder how many conservative men masturbate to her because I know they think that she's really attractive. And that's when I think the real tears should come. Because who doesn't need lubricant in the form of tears? Okay, on that. Yeah, sorry.
Water water doesn't work like oil, bud.
No.
Oh, that's true.
Especially salt water.
Yeah. I was just about to say there's a salt joke in there somewhere.
Yep.
Paul, what else is going on with you? Because I know that where are you right now? Like you have two houses, right? You live like in near Hamilton, and then Manitoulin Island. You have a place, right?
Yes. I'm south right now. I'm in Hamilton right now.
How big? Because I live north. I live in Killaloe, which is in the Madawaska Valley.
Yep.
Holy shit! How big were the fucking mosquitoes this year on Manitoulin Island? Because they were like the size of small children where I am.
Dude, I am constantly blown away by this fall. If I was out on my deck right now in Hamilton, I'd be getting eaten alive. I lived up north for 2 straight months and a little bit, and I got 2 mosquito bites up north.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man, they weren't bad this year. It was so dry. Like when you have those dry years, there's less, but there's like a lot of different. You should look into this further. There's a lot of different species of mosquito, actually. Like mosquitoes aren't just mosquitoes, right? There's like many species of mosquitoes. Some of them are really tiny and some of them are really big, but like you should find out.
I find it poetic that only the females suck the blood out of your body.
Yeah, the males are just basically useless.
yeah, there you go. So there's good generalities on both sides of that.
I'll tell you this about the mosquitoes. So I didn't say this. Oh, was it? Oh, that's the East Coast.
That's the hurricane just off the coast of Nova Scotia.
Is that just below PEI or something?
No, Nova Scotia.
Oh wow,
below Nova Scotia.
So that's where
eye.
Ree is.
Oh,
Saucy Sea Witch is very close to the edge of that.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. So about mosquito bites, I'm just gonna do. I don't know how many people are watching this right now, but I'm doing everybody a favor right now. I'm sorry.
What was that?
That was
not
my
me.
wife. My wife
Jesus
texted
Christ,
me.
Rachel.
I was supposed to put it on Do Not Disturb until tomorrow morning. Sorry, my apologies. So
Rachel,
if you get
hold on. Your notification for Rachel is kind of like Rachel. She knows how to command attention. Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Exactly right. It doesn't say that though. It's just.
I love Paul's wife. I honestly would date Paul's wife if Paul was dead. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, you never know, man. I might be. Do you know I had a motorcycle accident and I broke my collarbone? But
That's right. I was this close, motherfucker.
Yeah, and I rode tonight. So I'm back
Yeah.
on the road.
there
So
you
who
go.
knows? I might be dead sooner than
Back to
later.
your riveting
Yeah,
story
so the
about
mosquito
mosquitoes,
thing.
please.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
rambling. So the mosquito thing, like the reason you're itchy, everybody knows this part. The reason you're itchy is because your blood is too thick to fit up that little tube mouth part of theirs. And so they inject you with an anticoagulant to like thin your blood a little bit so they can drink it. Right?
Right.
That is what is itchy. That stuff they put in you is what you're allergic to. So if you and it's also it's like it works on agitation. If
Right.
you do not scratch, it will burn like 12 suns laying on your skin for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it will again when it goes away.
I didn't
You know
know
how
that.
sometimes if you scratch it, it keeps coming back and keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. You're just agitating that shit again. I'm
I
sure
like
of
to
it.
squeeze it when they're still biting you and make them explode.
Most people do that. I mean, if the shit's in you, you're gonna be itchy. You might as well,
Did
blow
you
'em up.
feed
like-
firecrackers
but-
to frogs too when you were young?
No.
No,
but
I
that's
never
not a
did
very
that.
good analogy.
Not at all.
But
I might have. Those frogs started sucking my blood, and making me itchy.
right? But that's like cats. Like you're not allergic to the hair on cats. You're allergic to the dried saliva on the hair on cats, right? The dander or whatever that's called.
Standard, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same shit. That was a good show. Let's wrap it here because I don't want it to go south when I say something even more offensive than whatever it was I said before about the tears. So, you know. Paul Atkinson, Paul Riss, big thanks to David Wallace, big thanks to Caryma who did the Irish exit, and I respect her for that. Thank you guys for joining me today on Blackballed. I really appreciate it, guys.
Good times, brother.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Take care.
See you later, Paul.
See you.
See you later, Paul. Thanks everybody. That was awesome. Ree, give us an update on what's going on where you are, because I hear that you're in the heart or the path of the eye of the hurricane. So I hope you're okay. And I'm going to scroll down here and see what the comments say. Where's Saucy Sea Witch? Okay. Well, either way, Ree, take some footage if you can. Don't die. But can you take some footage? I'm always one of these guys that wants to see what the hurricane looks like. I'm one of those guys that I would love to be a storm chaser as well. So in any event, we thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Black.